Dear user, welcome to the Intestate Succession Assessment. First and foremost, our condolences for your loss. This assessment was created by CTT Law to aid individuals who wish to know more about intestate succession as well as how to generate a letter of administration. Briefly, this assessment is in 3 parts. Firstly, to determine if the deceased left behind a valid will, and if not, to determine the portion you can claim under the Intestate Succession Act, and if you would like to generate relevant documents for an LOA. Part 1 will determine the validity of the deceased will. So we note here that the deceased has a will, and so we'll proceed on to relevant questions, such as if the will is committed to writing, the testator of a certain age, signing at the foot of the will, and since the will is determined to be valid, the user is directed to apply for a grant of probate. Unfortunately, this is not covered under the assessment. So we'll restart the process to determine how to get to part 2. So in this case, when we refill out the assessment, we're going to say that the deceased does not have a valid will. This will then take you to part 2 of the assessment, which asks for your relationship with the deceased to then determine the portion of the deceased estates to which you are entitled to. So as you see the different relationships, for the purpose we will select relative. So after you select the relevant relationship, it will ask you certain guiding questions to determine the portion of the asset which you are to receive. For this demo, we selected no for every choice, which then leads to the screen where it notes that you are entitled to the entirety of the deceased's estate to be shared with any aunts or uncles. Now you may choose to continue to apply for an LOA or exit the program. If you continue, you will then be presented with part 3 of the assessment. Part 3 states the qualifications that may help or hinder your application for LOA. This includes your age, as well as the deceased domicile, amongst other things. If you click no, you will be taken to a thank you message. At the thank you message, you will then be able to be directed to the law firm of those who created this form, Chu, Tan and Theo LPP, who specializes in family law, wills and estate planning. With great references from other lawyers, as well as established acclamations, CTT is the law firm you should choose. Back to the application, if you select yes to proceed, you will be prompted to fill in the value of the deceased's estate. If you put amount of 50,000 and below, the system will tell you that you should consider applying to the public trustee to administer the estate. And if you click at the relevant link, it will take you to the public trustee's page. So for the purposes of the demo, we will increase the value. Next, the system will prompt you for your details. These are things like your name, NRIC number, your address, based on the style and format provided, the gender, the date of birth, your relevant age, and your relationship to the deceased. The system will prompt you about the details of the deceased. Again, it will prompt you about the deceased's name, NRIC number. For the purposes of this demonstration, we have keyed in an invalid NRIC number to see what happens next. The deceased's address in the same form as previously. Next, the deceased's date of death, the place of death, the domicile, the deceased's nationality, the deceased's religion, his marital status, as well as the deceased's gender. So you look at, as you press continue, pops up that there's an invalid NRIC format for an NRIC check. We put in the correct one and hit continue. Next, it will ask you if it filed within or after the lapse of 6 months. The system will then prompt you for a reason for any delays, which you can just put a dash if it was filed within 6 months. So you hit continue. It will ask you for today's year, which is 2020 for the demonstration. So now this part of the form will now prompt you about additional particulars you may need to help you obtain the letters of administration. So here we have the additional co-administrator details. So please note that you will only fill this in if it's applicable. So if you are the only administrator applying, you do not need to fill in these columns, and you repeat this for the first, second, and third co-administrator details. After that, we'll go on to beneficiary information. So please note that you yourself, the applicant, are the first beneficiary. That's why it's prompting you for the second beneficiary's information. And as always, you don't have to fill it in if it's not applicable. So you can just hit continue as well for the third and fourth beneficiary informations. We come to the particulars of spouse and other next of kin who are deceased, and to fill in their relevant information if applicable. If not, just hit continue as usual. This will repeat on for the first, second, third, and fourth. Then we have the particulars of persons with prior or equal rights to the deceased estate. So you can hit continue again if it's not applicable. Again, it's repeated for 4 times. Particulars of minors, it will prompt you if there are minors with interest in the estate, to which you can answer affirmatively or in the negative. You will then be prompted about filling in the information about minors and their share percentage, which you can leave empty if it's not applicable, which again repeats for the first, second, third, and fourth minor. When you click continue, you will be brought to the end of the assessment and the documents will be generated for you. Now going on to the originating summons and the statement of the letter of administration. These are legal documents generated for you. Just a quick note, if you'd like to edit these documents, you can just download them in their Word form instead of PDF form. Now for the originating summons, so you can see here it filled out your name for the applicant. Over here it's Andre Calvin Chu, today's year, and to delete the statements that are inapplicable. So if you were the only co-administrator, you keep one of the 2 statements. It puts in your address as well as inputted. Then we go on to the statement for the probate or administration. So in this case, it's just the letter of administration with the relevant details of the deceased. You can verify them. Applicant's details. You also have the general details about the value of the estate as well as the application filed timeline. Then you have the beneficiary particulars. In this case, it's only yours because you did not indicate any other beneficiaries. Then we have the particulars of spouse or next of kin deceased, persons with prior equal rights, minorities, and possible co-administrators.